A lot of men like to say that all women are the same, and that is an absolute lie. And this is the reason why. This right here is the single most powerful document that you can have as a man in 2023. Now, before I get into this video, I want to make this disclaimer. I am not affiliated with any particular dating movement. I do not affiliate myself with the values of any particular dating movement because I understand that, generally speaking, and this might be a contradiction on my behalf, but a lot of these dating movements work primarily on generalities, and I like to tackle more of the nuances in this life thing, and that doesn't exclude the dating space. That being said, there is a copious amount of truth in the Passport Bros movement, and we need to talk about it. You see, there was a point in time when I came across a few of these Passport Bros videos, and they opened my perspective because I had never considered the possibility of dating a woman from overseas. Now, this is pretty ironic because my own mother is from overseas. She's from the Philippines herself, born and raised. She didn't come to the States until she was, I think, 25 or 26 years old. Whereas my dad, he's from the States. My dad is one of the original Passport Bros. But for whatever reason, it never registered in my mind that that was a possibility for me until I came across a few of those videos. Now, I've talked about how I met my girlfriend and how we ended up becoming a thing. Okay, we started off as friends, but again, I didn't consider the possibility of dating somebody from overseas. So me seeing those videos was actually the catalyst that allowed me, that enabled me to start seeing my girlfriend as a potential dating option at the time. Because in my head, I thought, well, I didn't want to say all women were the same because I knew she was different, but I wasn't really open to the idea of going somewhere else to test this theory, right? At the end of the day, I had never met her in person, never even talked to her on the phone, so I never considered the possibility that maybe women from other places really are just different than women from America. Now again, I don't want to speak in too broad of generalities, but at the same time, this is just common sense. Okay, this is common sense. When you open up to the idea that perhaps your soulmate or the person that you're supposed to be with may just live in another country, you step out of the scarcity mindset. A lot of times, we as men deal with things that we don't need to deal with when it comes to women, simply because of the scarcity mindset. We've never left the town that we're from or the state that we're from. And in some cases, the country that we're from. Most cases, really, a lot of men in America, at least, do not have their passports. I don't have a statistic to back this up, but there are a lot of young men, none of my friends have ever left the country. Or none of my close friends, at least, that I'm aware of, have left the country and seen other things. Okay, most of them don't even have their passports. So, in me having not only been to another country, but now dating a girl who's from another country, I've now opened the door for some of my friends to see that we are out here being scammed. Okay, not just in terms of the dating market, but in terms of the housing market, in terms of a lot of the things that we've normalized as Westerners, and particularly as Americans. The reason why you need to get your passport is because when you get your passport, you realize that not all women are the same. Not all women are the same. The stuff that we as men have to deal with when dealing with American women, some of the flakiness, for example, some of the games, the mind games, these are things that women from other countries, and like I said, there are exceptions. I'm speaking in generalities right now, but women from other countries don't necessarily operate with the same software that women from America do because they are raised in a different environment. You guys need to understand from a logical perspective that even within the United States, a woman who grew up in rural Alabama is not going to operate the same way as a woman who grew up in the Bronx, New York City. They're just not going to be the same. They're going to operate completely different. Just like two men who are from differing parts of the country are going to operate completely differently. Now imagine how different the women overseas are, where you have an entire ocean separating you. Okay, and obviously we have the internet, so yes, these women do have access to some of the trends of American women, but at the same time, they have the conditioning, the foundational conditioning that they've received from the previous generations that didn't have that same level of access that they have. And generally speaking, that foundational formative years conditioning is going to take precedence over the conditioning from Western media, right? And again, when I say Western, I'm more so speaking to the American audience. My girlfriend is still from a Western civilization, but she's so different that I had to give credence to this movement. I realized that some of the things that she values and some of the things that her culture values, she's from the Netherlands, some of the things that the Dutch culture values are so different than the things that the American culture values that it only makes sense that she would operate differently. You see, my girlfriend, she's not a materialistic person. She's not always thinking about how she can one-up her female friends because it's not ingrained in their culture. People talk about biology, but at the end of the day, nurture is just as important as nature. So when you talk about hypergamy and these sorts of things, these things don't necessarily apply in the same way everywhere that you go, right? I was living in my car and my girlfriend never changed her energy at all. It never mattered to her because she wasn't raised to think that that's a problem, right? Obviously, that's not a situation that I would want to bring her into, and I would never do that. But at the same time, she showed me, not just told me, but showed me that because her culture doesn't value materialism nearly as much as America does, which, by the way, America is by and far the most materialistic culture on this planet. Just want to throw that out there. But she showed me that because her culture doesn't necessarily value that, she's not going to use me for my resources in the same way that a lot of American women would look to do that. Because she's conditioned differently. She is conditioned differently. We all operate based on our conditioning, our foundational formative year conditioning. And when you understand that, you realize that having access to a passport, being able to go to different countries, whether that be in Western or Eastern Europe, South America, or if you want to go to Asia, you're going to run across various different types of not just women, but people. When you talk about prospective business partners or creating a community of men who are like-minded, who value the same things that you do, your tribe might just be somewhere else. And a lot of men, especially in America, they don't understand this because growing up, we're not taught that these other countries are developed and livable. But I know from firsthand experience that a lot of these countries are even more developed than the US is. We don't learn that in school because they want us to stay here and keep giving them our money and stay a part of this consumerist system. That's a different discussion for a different day. But the point that I'm trying to make is that you need to expand your horizons. You're trying to play a game that is not designed for you to win. It is designed for you to lose. This doesn't just apply to the dating market. Okay, that's just a symptom of the greater issue. The issue is that America operates on consumerism. We are a hyper-consumerist society, and once you travel to other places, you realize that firsthand, that other people, they don't value having the nicest car and the designer clothes the same way that we do. Now, like I said, there are exceptions to the rule. There are people in Europe, there are people in Southeast Asia who do value these things. There are women who value these things as well. But when you expose yourself to different cultures, you'll begin to realize that you've been playing a game that you really don't need to be playing. And that's really, in my opinion, what it means to escape the matrix, is to get out of the framework of your conditioning and really see what this world has to offer. You see, a lot of you guys, you think that you need to be rich to travel. Because in America, yeah, it does cost a lot of money to travel to the more desirable locations. If you want to go to New York, if you want to go to LA, you're going to have to drop the bag. But in a lot of these places, if you had $5,000, you could pay for your whole year's rent up front. But most of us don't know that. We don't know that not only can you pay $5,000, $6,000 and get a year's worth of rent, but a lot of us don't know that you can do that and live in a high-rise apartment the type of apartment that here, at least in Dallas, Texas, would cost you $2,000 or more for the same experience. And then on top of that, you don't have to deal with all of the extra BS with the mass shootings and things of that nature. There's a whole world out there, and women are simply a part of that world.